Over the last few seasons, we've had some very successful teams that have got promoted out of League One into the Championship and had very, very successful seasons. In the last 2 seasons, every single club has stayed up that's got promoted from League One, with even one in Ipswich Town getting promoted and getting back-to-back promotions to the Premier League. And could that happen this season? We're going to be taking a look at all 3 of the newly promoted clubs, speaking about their transfer business and their chances this season in the Championship. A very exciting time for all 3 of these fan bases. If you're a Championship fan, if you're a fan of Birmingham City, Wrexham and Charlton, do hit that subscribe button because we do daily Championship content. We talk about your teams pretty much every single day. So if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, it'd be very greatly appreciated. And we're going to be saying who's had the best window out of the 3 clubs that I've just discussed right there. So let's jump straight into it. And we've got to start off by talking about Charlton Athletic. Because I'd say out of the 3 teams, it's different for every single team in terms of kind of expectations and the way you have to judge them. Because I think all 3 are coming into it in such different situations. And Charlton, you'd say, for the general Championship fan and the general kind of opinion, people have them as the lowest out of the 3 in terms of their expectations. And to be fair, if you offered Charlton probably 21st at the start of the season, I think the majority of Charlton fans would probably just take staying up. And I think that would be a big enough success to then obviously build on that in future seasons. But I honestly think with the kind of ambition that Charlton have shown and the money they've spent and the moves that they've made, I really do think they can have expectations beyond just staying up, in my opinion. Of course, relegation and staying up is the first and foremost. That is what you want to do. You want to get to that kind of 50-point mark and then kind of go from there. But of course, Charlton, that will be their minimum aim, and that's what they want to do. But I think, as I say, the kind of business they've done, the way they've started the season, there's a lot of positivity to go around at Charlton right now, in my opinion. If you just quickly have a look at their transfer business, they've been very, very busy. And in my opinion, they absolutely had to be busy. They, of course, last season got promoted from League One through the playoffs. And I said on TikTok, even when Charlton first got promoted, they're going to need to heavily invest into this squad if they want to have any chance of staying up, and they've obviously recognised that, and they really have gone out there, and I think they've gone big with their transfers, and they've definitely stayed to claim for, you know, being a very underrated team this season, in my opinion. Obviously, as I say, they've splashed the cash. They've spent, it says they're 11.62 million euros, so what's that, just shy of like 10 million pounds they've spent in the transfer market. And as I say, they kind of had to do that if they wanted to have any chance of staying up, in my opinion. They've absolutely given themselves a great chance, in my opinion. I think they've really got a good balance to the kind of players that they've brought in. Obviously, they've brought in some Championship experience players, which is something that they desperately needed and definitely needed going into the new season. You look at the likes of course, they brought in Reece Burke from Luton, and as well, they brought in Amari Bell from Luton. I think it's a great signing. Joe Rankin-Costello's played for numerous years at Blackburn, and Thomas Kaminski as well. A few of them players, of course, getting promoted with Luton as well from the Championship and playing Premier League football as well. So they've got some real experience that they've brought in. But then I also really like the kind of players that they've gone into from League One. They've kind of gone down the level to where they've just come from. Picked out and cherry-picked some of the best players in League One from last season. You could like, of course, Charlie Kelman, the top goal scorer. Rob Apter, I think, is a fantastic sign. Harvey Nibbs, who, of course, got that goal on the opening day of the season. Alafe as well. I've been really, really impressed with the business they've done. As I say, I think they've got a really good balance of players that can develop with Charlton and make that step up to the Championship. And as well as that, they've also got some Championship experienced players in there as well. So as I said, I think they've got a really nice balance. And then it's not even talking about, not even mentioning here, the manager, Nathan Jones. We saw last season at Charlton, as I say, I think they needed massive investment in that squad to stay up in the Championship. But you look at them last season, they were very difficult to beat. They made it hard for teams. And that is absolutely perfect for Charlton going into the Championship. That kind of grit that they had in League One, if they can take that into the Championship, which already in the opening 2 matches, they've proved that they can take that so far with 0 goals conceded in the opening 2 matches. Only the 1 goal scored, obviously we'll discuss that in a bit. But for Nathan Jones, I think obviously he's got that kind of grit in the side. He's a kind of manager as well, which would absolutely love an away win, a 1-0 win. That's the kind of manager Nathan Jones is, and he's an absolute just madman. And honestly, Nathan Jones plays into it. Obviously, rival fans don't like him at all, the way that he acts. Charlton fans absolutely love it. If I was a Charlton fan, I absolutely love Nathan Jones, and honestly, I just respect the guy. I think the guy is hilarious. He kind of plays into the fact that he's this kind of class clown, this joker in terms of the way that he celebrates the goals and gets all the cameras on him. He's 100% playing into it, and I honestly think it's class from Nathan Jones, and just long may it continue, because it is just pretty funny. But as I say, going back to transfer business, I think, as I say, the players from League One that they've brought in, I've been really impressed with. I think Charlie Kelman, of course, top scorer last season. As a QPR fan, I've watched a lot of Charlie Kelman, and I think in the Championship he really has struggled for QPR. Like, he never scored a goal for us. He played like 25 games in all comps for us and never scored a goal, and never really looked like scoring a goal, in all honesty. And he's a player that's struggled in the EFL. Not really had a great goal return his whole time in the EFL until that season at Leyton Orient, where I think before he just didn't look ready. From watching him at QPR, Charlie Kelman just didn't look ready in the slightest. Now, he looks like he's a bit more ready. He looks like he's more polished out. And as well as that, his finishing's very good. And he looks like he's a bit more kind of a physical presence. And he can actually kind of carry himself at League One level anyway. So we need to see if he can make that step up to the Championship. And they paid a big fee for him. I think if he can get double-figure goals, if he can score 10 goals this season, I think that'll be a great success. If he can score 10 goals and Charlton stay up, then he'd be worth every penny. As a QPR fan, I think we got a really good fee for him. You know, as I say, he didn't want to be here. He hadn't done anything for QPR in the past. So as a QPR fan, I was buzzing to get that kind of money for Charlie Kelman, potentially rising to £5 million apparently. But I think, as I say, if he can get himself 10 goals, then I think he'd be very successful. But I'm not sold on Charlie Kelman at Championship level yet, because he has only had one season in the EFL. But I'm not doubting how good he was for Leyton Orient last season, because I think he really did. He really did impress for Leyton Orient. And as I say, I think the other players that brought in, Rob Apps is a really good signing from Blackpool, obviously did very well there. Harvey Nibbs as well. And Olafe definitely offers something different as well up top. Obviously, the guy is just an absolute... He's just rapid. He's such a nuisance and such a handful. Watching him last season a few times to stop, but I really was impressed with him, to be honest. And as I said, I think they've got a good balance to the kind of signings they've made in mix of experience, players that need to prove themselves at Championship level. I've been really impressed with Charlton, I'm not going to lie. And as I say, the start of the season really well, been hard to beat, and that's exactly what Nathan Jones wants to do. Just the one goal scored, obviously they need to be creating more, which I'm sure will come in with time. But at the end of the day, they've conceded 0 goals in the Championship, and there's only 2 teams that have done that. And Charlton being a newly promoted team to be one of that is very impressive. So as I say, a bit different expectations than maybe these other 2 teams we're going to be discussing, but I think I've been really impressed. And if you take kind of expectations into consideration and what Charlton are kind of, as I say, expecting this season, I think they've made some really good signings, and then mixed in with the players they already had as well from last season. You look at Jones at centre back, and some of the other players in there as well, Coventry as well. I think I've been really impressed with the way that Charlton have gone about their business this summer, and I think they can be very confident going ahead into the new season. As I say, they've already started the season really, really well. And then we've got to move on to Wrexham and talk about them. And of course, they've been making waves, they've been making statements, and they've been getting talked about left, right, and centre for multiple different reasons, for good and for maybe bad reasons as well. So as I say, Wrexham have been very, very busy in the transfer market. We'll just go and have a look there. I think, don't get me wrong, I think Wrexham have actually made some really good signings, but I look at them and think, I mean, I guess their model isn't to go and bring in develop players really. They are bringing in Callum Doyle from Man City, who've had loan spells at multiple different Championship clubs and done really well. I think that's actually a good piece of business. Spending a big fee again on him at £8 million, but that's a bit more justified when he's like 21 years old, and he's got that kind of potential to grow, which is something that Wrexham signings in the past haven't really had that kind of. They haven't really had that to the signings that they've made. They've gone for more experienced players. As I say, some of the transfer fees are definitely ones that you can raise your eyebrow at, especially obviously the Nathan Broadhead one. What's that, like rising to £10 million or something for a 27-year-old who has got a decent record in the Championship. Like he's a good Championship player. Like as I said, the fee, I don't think Wrexham care. That's the thing. I don't think Wrexham care about the fee in the slightest. So if they don't care about it, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, this guy is a good player at Championship level, and he's proved that. Last time he was in the Championship for a full season, 38 games and 13 goals. So he's got a very good return, and I think obviously he's a good signing. But as I say, the price, I just can't agree with that price in the slightest. If I'm picking out a signing that I like the most, the pick of the bunch for me is Lewis O'Brien. I think that's a fantastic signing. You look at how influential he's been at multiple clubs that he's been at. You look at Huddersfield when they had that season where they got the playoffs. He was so influential for them. And as well as that, when he came in on loan to Swansea last season, he was really, really impressive as well. I think for me, if I was picking a signing that I like the most, I'd say Lewis O'Brien. I think he's a great addition. He's still 26 years old. He's got that experience in the Championship, and he's definitely a player that's a very good player at Championship level and very capable of being a kind of a leader as well in that camp at Wrexham as well. Of course, I've had multiple leaders and multiple players with experience, the likes of Connor Cody, who he's kind of fallen off for a few years now. Going to a club at Wrexham might help him out a lot more as well. Keeper Moore as well. I think that's a good signing to be fair. Obviously, they spent a bit of money on him. The rumour was $4 million. It wasn't. It was about $2 million in the end. Obviously, he's 32 years old, like 33 almost, but he's a player that I think fits Phil Parkinson's system. I think he fits Wrexham's system perfectly in terms of he's a big physical presence. He can hold the ball, he can bring others into play, and the ball actually sticks him when he goes up as well. I think he is a very good player. I just kind of struggled in that last season at Sheffield United, definitely, but I think at Wrexham it will suit him a lot more. I think Josh Windass is a fantastic piece of business, but he has just picked up an injury, and it's a shame really with Windass because I think he looked decent in that first game when I watched him. When I watched him against Southampton, I think him and Kiefer Moore really did link up well together. Big shame that he's ended up getting himself injured. He's out for like 6 weeks, which is a big loss because you look at the kind of goals that Windass has put up consistently at Championship level. It's it's very good numbers, and as I say, I think he'd definitely be able to put up similar numbers for Wrexham in my opinion. And as I say, he's a player that kind of has that leadership. He brings goals. He's got assists as well. He kind of brings a lot to that team. And as I say, for him to be out for 6 weeks straight away is not ideal for Wrexham at all, who have started the season as well, it's worth saying, pretty poorly as well. Obviously, they've had 2 very difficult games against Southampton and West Brom as well. So you can't write them off or anything like that because I still think they'll be absolutely fine in terms of safety. But you've got to, right? Their expectations have got to be well beyond safety because you look at the money they've spent, right? That's 21.5 million euros before the signing of Callum Doyle, which is another 8 million pounds. So you're talking like 25 million pounds, maybe even more than that with add-ons and that. You'd be talking probably 30 million pounds, and like that's more than any other championship club. I think Norwich have spent the most at the moment, or one of the most anyway, who are on about 25. But then Norwich have also sold, obviously they sold Borja Sainz and they sold a couple of other players as well to get them some some big fees in terms of their net spend. Norwich are actually pretty much even, and Wrexham are nowhere near that. So like, with the money they've spent, they've surely got to have expectations well beyond safety, in my opinion. You look at the players they've brought in. Obviously, it's a bit of a weird one because, they've brought in these quality players and then they've also got kind of the players from League One as well. It's a little bit of a strange situation, really, because obviously they've got the kind of back-to-back-to-back, which is always going to be... You're always going to have players from the old kind of regime still knocking around the squad, which is always going to be the case when you get 3 promotions in a row and you have, obviously, still contracts that haven't expired and stuff like that. Wrexham got a great opportunity for a win this weekend against Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, we know the situation that Wednesday are in. But I really think there's pressure on Phil Parkinson. The guy's record at Championship level is diabolical. And... the longer it goes on, the more you start to be concerned about Phil Parkinson because people are going to very easily throw that claim against Parkinson that he's never been able to cut it at Championship level. So I think he needs to get a few wins under his belt and get Wrexham just a bit away from that relegation zone, so then you don't have that kind of pressure and that talk about Phil Parkinson and the Championship and this kind of record there. But as I say, they've made enough signings, in my opinion, to be absolutely fine in terms of safety. I think it would be an absolute travesty if they're anywhere near the bottom, in my opinion, with the kind of players they've brought in. And as I say, I think they've had a good transfer window. Obviously, they spent a lot of money, but we knew they were always going to do that. And they did have to spend money as well, because that squad, when they first got promoted from League One, was nowhere near. That would have got absolutely steamrolled again, kind of like a Charlton. That would have got steamrolled in the Championship without any signing. So they obviously were going to go into the market, and they splashed the cash. They splashed a lot of cash, and I don't think they even care, to be honest. And neither do I. Right, so now we're on to Birmingham City, who, out of the 3, have definitely got the largest expectations this season, 100%, because I think Birmingham, obviously, they've been predicted by the bookies to be right up there for a reason. They've started the season with the performances really well, and it just kind of adds into the fact that you really do think Birmingham City are going to be very good this season, especially out in League One as well. Of course, they got the record points, and we're expecting them to kind of continue that into Championship. Not quite the record points, but we're expecting them to be very decent again in the Championship, and they've proved that so far with the opponents that they've had, Ipswich to play the way they did. Sheffield United in the Cup, I think that just proved Birmingham City's depth and the quality of depth they've got in the side. And then they also had a very gritty win to score 2 90th minute goals against Blackburn. For me, all of them kind of games had a bit different in their performance, something different to be positive about in all 3. So I think that to me shows that Birmingham City are going to be right up there come the end of the season. Of course, as I say, Birmingham City without any signings, obviously they've gone into the market and invested, and they've obviously brought in a lot of players and spent very well, and the players they've brought in are very good players. I think if you gave Birmingham 0 signings going into the new season, I think they'd still be absolutely fine in the Championship. But as I say, that's irrelevant me saying that, because they have obviously brought in quite a lot of players. And we're just going to have a look at the players they've kind of brought in. In terms of transfer fees, it's not huge, because they managed to get in terms of their income, they managed to get £9 million for some of the players they've managed to pick up just here and there. They managed to sell, of course, Donovan going to Brentford, a young player. So they have actually only spent, in terms of net spend, £4 million, not even. So they haven't actually spent a lot of money in terms of transfer fees. Of course, they've brought in players on that are going to be on kind of big wages. You look at the likes of Kyogo, who they did spend a big transfer fee on, the most expensive one out of the lot, of like £8 million or whatever it is for Kyogo. And as well as that Marvin Dutschke as well. I mean, £2 million, he's 31 years old, yes. But if you look at this guy's record in the Bundesliga, if he can contribute, if he can come in and kind of put up them kind of numbers and play the way that I've seen him play over in the Bundesliga, then I'm sure that £2 million, if he helps them get kind of towards promotion, then it's it's a very good piece of business right there. And the free transfers and loans that they've utilised, I think, have been very, very smart. You look at the likes of Tommy Doyle, played over 50 games in the Premier League. Cashin, who got a move to Brighton just 6 months ago for like £10 million, whatever it was, from Derby County. And on free transfers, I think they've been even smarter. I think Demarai Gray's a fantastic piece of business. He knows the club already, and he started the season really, really positive. He has that kind of quality, that Premier League quality. I'd still say, even though a lot of people do say, oh, I have said he's fallen off over the last 2 years, I think that's a fantastic signing, one of the signings of the window for me. Phil Newman's literally taken to the Championship like it's absolutely nothing. He's looked like he's played there for years. And again, he looks very solid, physically up for the battle, and as well as that decent on the ball as well. I think he's been a really good signing as well. Fujimoto, we're yet to see, he's been injured, but bright side, Samuel's on a free transfer. Like, he's still 27 years old, so he's still like in his prime years now. Birmingham City already had Ethan Laird. They're bringing in that kind of competition for places as well. So I've been really impressed with the business that Birmingham City have done so far. And as I say, that's not even talking about the squad and the quality of squad they already had on top of what they brought in as well. So I think, as I say, they got the depth. You look at the team that they played against Sheffield United, which was kind of their... I mean, it wasn't their backup team, but they made like 6 changes, and look at how strong that team still looks. Such a good team right there. So as I say, I think they'll be right up there come the end of the season. As I say, the expectations is very difficult. It's difficult to kind of compare all 3 windows because Charlton have got a situation where, of course, their expectation really is just to stay up. If they get 21st, they'll probably take it. So Charlton, in my opinion, for Charlton's expectation, I think their transfer business has been phenomenal. I think they really have had a good transfer window that for me has given them an excellent chance of staying up. Hence why I put them in my predictions in like 17th, 18th, whatever I put them in. And Birmingham City have made great transfers in terms of making that step up straight away to go for the back-to-back. The ownership have clearly sensed an opportunity here with a potential points deduction for Leicester on the horizon. And all it takes then is Ipswich, Southampton to not perform to expectations. Then you're talking about Birmingham City maybe being that next team that can maybe head into the automatic, of course, as certainly as the bookies have got them as that. So I think Birmingham City have had a really good chance to win in terms of making statements to say we are going to go back-to-back. And Wrexham, they've made the transfers that for me is enough to keep them up as well and keep them comfortably up as well. But then I look at the transfer fees and I'm like, but as I say, they don't care about that. But I'm looking at it from that perspective and thinking Wrexham have had the worst out of the 3. And then I'd probably say, I'd probably have to go Charlton in second and Birmingham City in first, just because Birmingham, I think, are going to be right up there come the end of the season. And these are the signings that they've made, which, by the way, the window's not over. There's still going to be more signings to be made by all 3 of these teams, potentially. And I think Birmingham City have made transfers that can really push them into that kind of automatic promotion picture, potentially, at least in playoff picture, in my opinion. So I think, obviously, but as I say, all 3 clubs have had fantastic windows. But if I was to rank, I'd say Wrexham third, Charlton second, Birmingham City first. But let me know what you think of that in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like. It takes 1 second. Please do hit that subscribe button as well. If you've watched this point, as I say, it takes 1 second. Be very greatly appreciated. If you're a fan of any of these 3 clubs, Wrexham, Birmingham, and Charlton, do hit that subscribe button. And if you're a fan of the Championship as well, just hit subscribe because we do daily Championship content. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.